Hello everybody and welcome back to another Betting Expert MMA video where I'm your host. My name is Adam. Today I take you through some of my picks for this weekend's UFC Fight Island 3, which has Darren Till versus Whittaker in the main event. All in all, I think this is a pretty great card. I have 3 specific fights outlined where I think there is some pretty great betting value. I'm gonna take you through those right now. So if we start off in the prelims where Grundy, Englishman, is taking on Movsar Evloev. Again, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I really see Grundy as a live dog here. I was quick to tip this fight. I was quick to tip Grundy as the underdog because I noticed that his odds were dropping, so sharp bettors were beginning to actually bet him at odds. I think you could get him at odds around 3. So that would be plus 200 if you're more familiar with moneyline odds. Couple of reasons why I think Grundy is such a live dog here. Number 1, he actually has a background in wrestling, which really can come in handy for him, as his opponent is a Russian grappler whose biggest method of victory is via getting the fight to the ground and tiring out his opponents. Grundy is also really big, and he might have a size advantage over the Russian, who actually is moving up a weight class for this fight. So I do think those are some pretty important factors to take into consideration, but I also think that Grundy is the more disciplined striker. If you go back and watch his UFC debut, he actually got the knockout in his debut. Very impressive stuff from the Englishman there. Managed to keep his composure despite getting hit pretty hard a few times, and eventually got the knockout. I think his background in wrestling and his power punching and just all in all, I just think he actually might be a bit too much for Evloev here, which is why I think he is really underpriced at these odds. But we are pretty early here, so it wouldn't surprise me if we see some more sharp money coming in on the Grundy side. But I think he wins this fight. I mean, this could be a coin flip fight. I think maybe even he wins 6 out of 10 times, keeps the fight on the feet and just chips away at the Russian. Maybe even gets a finish, wouldn't surprise me. Since the Russian Evloev isn't used to facing adversity. We also have to take into consideration that he is undefeated. Evloev is undefeated. We know that casual bettors, they're attracted to this sort of thing, betting on the undefeated fighter because they may think it's a safe bet. In this case, I don't think it is. I don't think anything warrants Evloev being the favorite at the odds that he has. And Grundy actually only has 1 loss, so if we're looking at losses, 1 loss many years ago should also add some value to his side. So all in all, I think Grundy is a pretty good pick for the preliminary card of UFC Fight Island number 3. Let's have a look at some stats here. We have the average fight time on Evloev's side here. Both gentlemen have the same reach and height. Bit of a age advantage for Evloev, but as I've talked about before, if you follow my picks, I think the age advantage only is important if the fighter who is older is like above 35. Otherwise, you haven't started your decline as a fighter yet. Most sharp bettors will tell you the same if they know something about MMA. It is only once you get past that 34, 35 point that you start losing more fights than you win. And Grundy is just beginning his career, so I don't think that the age gap here really is significant. Moving into strikes, we see the Russian landing a bit more, but also getting hit a bit more, while the striking accuracy definitely goes to Grundy at about 60%, which means that 6 out of 10 times he throws a punch, he lands. I think that's pretty good. Now, one of the best things about Grundy is actually his striking defense, which I noticed was super high. It is 76%. Really high numbers right there. We of course have to take into consideration that he only has one fight in the UFC, so his data might be a bit skewed or untrustworthy, but still, nonetheless, his debut was really impressive stuff. I recommend you go watch it if you're thinking about betting this fight. The grappling, you may be thinking like Grundy has a very low takedown average. Well, as I said before, he's only had one fight, so his data might be a bit skewed here, but in his career outside of the UFC, he has been known for getting the fight to the ground and actually submitting his opponents. He has about 8 submission victories, I believe, so very impressive. 100% takedown defense. I think we have some good stats for both fighters, but I think in the striking, especially Grundy will have a big advantage. Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm backing him at this price, essentially. Yeah. So next fight, let me just get back to the main page here. We have obviously the return of Alexander Gustafsson, the Swede, taking on the UFC legend Fabricio Werdum. Werdum actually also made his return not too long ago against Alexei Oleinik, another Russian. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, Werdum looked pretty bad compared to what we're used to seeing from him, but I think price is everything, and at these odds of about 3.75, I think Werdum is just so underpriced, it's crazy. Gustafsson is actually kind of in the same spot as Werdum is, because you might be thinking, well, Gustafsson he looked much better, even though he lost his last 2. He's been looking a lot better than Werdum. I mean, you can say that, but I mean, if you look at like the data objectively, Gustafsson, neither of these guys have won since 2017, I think. So they haven't had a win in like 3 years. Gustafsson retired after his last loss against Anthony Lionheart-Smith, where he lost via submission. And I just think that, you know, the mindset is super important in a sport like MMA, where you're like physically getting hurt. And Gustafsson jumping up a weight class like this, I mean, we don't know how this jump in weight will affect him. I mean, I'm not sure we can just say that it's probably going to be better for him. We have examples where jumping up weight classes actually affects fighters negatively. Luke Rockhold is a great example. He looked very slow in his fight against Blachowicz. So I think for that price of 3.75, I think Werdum, I mean, you gotta pick him at those odds. You just have to conclude that he wins about like 3 or 4 out of 10 times. I honestly think he does. Gustafsson isn't at his prime anymore either, so if you're expecting Gustafsson to just go out there and fight him like he did against John Jones in the first fight, that's not going to happen. Gustafsson is past his prime. I think the fact that he retired and he's now coming back, I think that's never good in MMA. Historically, we see when fighters are at the end of their road and they're not sure whether to retire or come back. Yeah, that's just not a good sign for me. I think Werdum, I'm going to go with Werdum. Also, historically in 2020, the value has actually been on the underdog in the heavyweight division. So if you've blindly picked underdogs in the heavyweight division in the UFC, you've actually made a small profit. For those reasons, I'm backing Werdum to win this fight over Gustafsson. Yep. Okay, so next pick, I have another fight I wanted to talk about, which was Mauricio versus Noguiera, a rematch between these two UFC legends. This is actually the co-main event of the evening, I do believe. Let's get some stats up here. Let me see here. So the first fight actually went the distance, and I'm pretty surprised that bookies put this fight out as actually favoring the fight to end inside the distance, because historically in rematches it kind of plays out the same way as the first time. So I just think, looking at these two fighters, of course they're nowhere near their respective primes, but it is Mauricio who has shown the less decline, and obviously he is the younger fighter by a few years. I think that's pretty significant. 1 inch reach advantage, always good. And he's just more busy on the feet, which is also what you can take away from his striking average per minute. Just lands like 1 strike more every minute, so I think that's really important. He's more accurate, and I also kind of think he has the grappling advantage. So why do I think this will go the distance? Well, we saw in the last fight from Mauricio against Paul Craig, he actually took shots pretty well, even though he's been knocked out a few times and he's way past his prime and all that. I think he took shots from Craig really well, showed kind of a good chin, so that's always good, having that on our side if we think this fight will go the distance. Also, I don't expect this fight to be like a firefight where either guy is going to hurt the other a lot. I just expect a pretty uneventful fight, actually. Maybe who are getting the best of the grappling and taking this fight to the ground and just edging out the decision. Neither fighter has been really dangerous in their last fights. So for those reasons, I like this to go the distance. At plus money, I think that's too good to be true, actually. Okay guys, so those were 3 of my best picks for this weekend's UFC event. I still have some other thoughts for the card because we are pretty early here, actually. I do think for the main event, either guy at a lot of plus money is actually pretty great value. I think Till versus Whittaker is probably one of the most evenly matched fights I've ever witnessed. I mean, I just can't pinpoint where one guy has a big advantage over the other. For those reasons, this is a coin flip fight. If you were quick, you could have gotten some great value on Till at about 237, but now it is a pick'em fight with most bookies, and if you like Whittaker, if you think he's going to win this fight, I think now is probably the time to pick him, since he has been bid up from about 161 to about 190 with bookmakers. So Till obviously maybe the power advantage. Whittaker's chin probably isn't the best anymore, but from a better standpoint, I'm staying away from this fight because I just can't see where one guy has an advantage over the other, and I don't think the price is quite right. I want some plus money on either of the guys, so I may wait and see if some money is coming in on either fighter, and hopefully I can get some plus money. Other than that, we have Francisco Trinaldo going up against Jay Herbert, who's making his UFC debut. I do think actually Herbert might be a live dog here, but I haven't picked him because he is facing Francisco Trinaldo, who is just such a beast. He is over 40 years old, but the guy has just not shown any decline. He hits like a truck, and I mean, he's just rock solid. Herbert really, you know, UFC debutants don't tend to do that well in their debut, so for those reasons I'm not so sure. But if more money comes in on Trinaldo and we see Herbert's odds shoot up to about 3, I think I would definitely pick him. I mean, that would just be awesome. What else have we got? We've got Nathaniel Wood, a prospect for many viewers in the eyes of many fans. He's facing John Castaneda, who's also making his UFC debut. Wood is a very big favorite here of about 1.25. I just think there's absolutely no value in these odds in the head-to-head market. That's definitely a dog or pass fight for me, but Wood has just looked so good, even in his last fight against Dodson, where he got knocked out for tough luck. I just think he looks so good. So dog or pass situation for me, but I mean, yeah, I just haven't seen enough from Castaneda on the big stage to bet him, even at those odds. So I'm probably staying away from it unless something crazy happens. Yeah, what else have we got? Oh yeah, we've got Jake Collier versus Tom Aspinall, that is. Aspinall making his UFC debut. We have quite a lot of UFC debuts on this card actually, against Jake Collier, who is 3-3 in the UFC. He's been on a few years layoff because he tested positive for a banned substance, so USADA handed him a suspension. Now he's coming back. Collier is a pretty interesting fighter because he actually has fought at middleweight, and then he went up to light heavyweight, and now he's going up to heavyweight. I'm not sure I like that as a bettor. I'm probably, for those reasons, going to stay away. But I think that Aspinall is very overpriced here. I don't get why he's the favorite. Because if you really look at the guys he's beat, they're not that impressive. Let me tell you that. So Collier, I think he could be a live dog, but I just don't know what to expect when you're coming off a layoff and you've tested positive for a banned substance. But I still think it's a dog or pass situation because Aspinall is actually, I think he has a 100% finish rate. He's only won in the first round almost, I do believe. And we just saw with Abdul Razak Al Hassan that, you know, it's different when you get to the UFC. You can't just rely on getting first round knockouts in all your fights. So yeah, I think Collier could be a live dog, but I want to see his odds go up a bit before I'm thinking about placing a bet on him. Those were just some extra thoughts on this weekend's great UFC card. I will catch you guys next week where I cover UFC Fight Night, Aldana versus Holly Holm. Until then, please like and subscribe and always gamble responsibly.